As of right now, what one team is doing, we're kind of just in the process of informing students about like the housing status, that it is open, but the 1,500 credit is available for students who are who decide to leave university housing by April 15th. We are still engaging with students that are in the building, and the best way that we are doing that is reaching out to them through our group meets, our reminds, our Instagrams, and if some people still have it, the Facebook pages. And we're kind of just doing polls, getting to know like what they're going through. And we're also still doing chill-in chats with the colleges. So the chill-in chats are very much passive programming, and that we're kind of just giving students like documents of like how to transition to this virtual online environment that we are in right now, and kind of letting them know that we're still here for them. Like, we'll never stop being their CAs and rascals. If they have questions, they can always just reach out to us.
Great, thank you for that brief synopsis of your transition and how you're helping and support students. I'd love to move on to Changemaker at this moment. If you could touch on a little bit about what you're doing virtually and some of the work.
Yeah, so unfortunately what happened is at the start of all of this, we had our Devils in Disguise planned out, and that was going to be our big event for students to engage in service for our community. So we had to, change that from in-person to online. So currently on our Instagram, we do have, for the next 15 days, we're doing 15 ways to still provide service in a virtual world, and every day we are updating it with one more little tip or something that you can do to promote service. So I think for today it was that if you're buying anything off Amazon, you are able to donate a percentage of it to whatever cause that you want, and so we'll keep updating those for the next 15 days, but other than that, we are engaging with our Instagram and our other social media and just trying our best to be present for the students that have any questions. But other than that, it's all smooth sailing so far.
Awesome, that's really neat. I'd love for you to touch on those 15 giving days a little bit later in this conversation, but I want to move on and have the Sun Devil Fitness Center talk a little bit about some of the wellness opportunities that students can still engage in online.
Yeah, so the Sun Devil Fitness Center, the physical center, is actually closed right now, but we still have a lot of opportunities for people to engage in virtually. So every day, if you follow our Live Well Instagram, you can log in and see our schedule. Those opportunities vary from fitness, wellness, nutrition, and we also on our website have listed health services and counseling opportunities. So if you go onto our Instagram or our website, fitness-related opportunities include yoga classes, Pilates classes, and sometimes they're on via Zoom, sometimes they're on live, and sometimes they're on YouTube. So there's different platforms for people to engage in different types of classes. We also have an Ask Nutrition Educator and Ask a Wellness Coach opportunities as well, so people can come in, maybe ask them about some nutrition things or things they can make at home while they've transitioned to being at home, or even just asking about tips and tricks on how to stay active or stay well during this virtual time. So those are some of our offerings that we currently have, and yeah, we're closed on the building, but we are open to exploring different virtual opportunities right now.
They sound really awesome. I'll definitely have to check him out some more. I was hoping also to move forward and have the Sun Devil Movement for Violence Prevention talk a little bit about what your work is doing, especially since we have a very special month this month. So if you could take it over from here, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm Olivia, and I'm a sophomore at ASU, and so I'm the president of the MVP Club downtown, and for this month, we have Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Throughout the month, we're hosting events now virtually. And like, for example, like today we have a Consent and Beyond like social media engagement event. So through our social media apps, like particularly Instagram, we have a big presence today, and we're going to be posting throughout the day different virtual like involvements, and like, so our Instagram is just the handle Sun Devil MVP, and we're just going to be posting throughout the day and like encouraging students to repost and respond to what we're talking about. And some other resources we're providing during this time is we're still hosting meetings every Thursday night from 5 to 6 p.m. through Zoom, and just having like an open conversation about various topics. Like, for example, like last night we talked about what resources we can provide to like victims of domestic violence during this time. So like people might be in like heightened situations at home, in the home environment, and like what we can do to help them, because during this time, like there's been an increase in calls to the domestic violence hotlines, and like as a club and as an organization, like what can we do to like help those numbers go down and like be there as a support system. And yeah, I can share the calendar with you guys too, because we have more events happening throughout the month leading up to Denim Day, which is our like kind of main event, like on the 29th. And yeah, just events surrounding that, and just starting the conversation about what we can do to prevent sexual assault.
Awesome. It sounds like you still have a pretty packed schedule going
Yeah, we're
into
trying
this
to like
transition.
shift everything online in any way we can.
Yeah, I really want to commend everyone on the SDLC team. I haven't worked with you personally, but you've done so much work in service for students, and it's amazing to see how fast everyone has picked up the pieces and moved virtually. And as you probably saw, we are recording this call because it's going to be shared with our newsletter, which goes out to all students on the downtown campus. So even for people that weren't able to be on this call, they're going to be able to hear some of the advice that some student leaders are offering. So I wanted to move into some general questions about some personal tips and tricks that you've either learned through your organization or being a student leader yourself on how this transition is going. So the first question that I have is, and this is open to anyone, these questions, what are some tricks that you have for students to help them succeed academically as a semester wraps up? Do you have any personal virtual study tips?
I'll give some tips. I didn't know if I mentioned it before, but I'm Elon. I'm a student coordinator at the SDFW. And one of the things that I do to keep on top of all the schoolwork I have to do virtually is making a schedule for myself. So although I'm not, traveling or going from campus to campus or attending classes in person, I still create a schedule for myself. That way I know what time of day I'm going to be doing my homework, when I have meetings or calls, when I have classes, and when I have time to just give and devote time to myself. So I think creating a schedule, writing it out the day before, that way you have a game plan for what your day is going to look like, is a really good idea to stay on top of things.
What about managing personal stress? Obviously, this is a difficult time, and you're transitioning to an online world on top of having to manage your schoolwork, manage family commitments, new jobs, moving back home. Does anyone have any tips for stress management? Maybe one team can talk a little bit about this because you work closely with students and go through a lot of training specifically.
Yeah, so I think a huge thing right now is students need to remember to unplug from just like the internet sometimes, because everything is virtual right now. You can't really escape it. So this was also something I was going to hit on, as to how to help the virtual. Just at least 30 minutes a day, like just unwind from like your computer or just your phone, because there can be a lot of content that could be sometimes triggering or trauma for you. And then also, when you're not unplugging from the internet, try to like talk to the people that matter to you. So the people that you love, make sure that you're connecting with like your family, make sure you're connecting with your friends that you've had in college, because they're still there for you, even though you can't still see them. And also, like, even though it's like everything is still virtual, it's kind of nice that we have all the resources to connect with people that are far away. So do group FaceTimes, watch Netflix. I think it's really important to remember to stick to your routine that you've had. If it was working out, make sure to do home workouts at home. Make sure to do face masks. Don't get caught up in everything that's going around in the world. Just make sure to like unwind, unplug, and just center yourself to what matters to you, and be mindful of everything that's going on.
You actually hit on one of my other questions, is how would you recommend connecting with friends and family? Like, is there a personal platform that you were all using? I know I'm using FaceTime a lot. I had my cousins over the other day and we had conversation, like a picnic through the screen. So they stood social distancing in our backyard. We had a conversation through the screen and ate dinner together as best we could. So I wanted to hear some of personal stories of how you all are connecting with friends and family or using Netflix Watch Party. I've never personally tried it, so if that's going really well. So things like that, if you could share.
So for me personally, I've been doing a lot of group FaceTimes with friends, and just like talking to them and getting to know like what's going on. And it's kind of weird because I feel like we've talked more now than we have throughout the whole semester. So it's really interesting. And I know for like my organization, we've been posting a lot on the Facebook pages of just like doing a lot of posts and just having everybody engage on there and getting to know like everyone's opinion and what they're going through. And also like Snapchat, I've been using Snapchat a lot where we'll just like send each other like funny videos of just what's going on in this world, how are we doing, and just like daily checkups on each other, like how are you doing today, how's just your life, how are you as a human being, like what's going on.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier about how you kind of set a routine every day and that helps you start your day successfully. And it can be hard when you're at home, you're right next to your bed. I know my desk is right next to my bed, so it's pretty hard just to roll out and move over 2 feet to start my day. What are some other tips that you have to start your day successfully, or things that you're personally doing that some students could benefit from?
Just directly to me, sorry. I was like, I don't know if I'm talking too much. uh For me, I think I've really just stuck. So I've had online classes already, so it wasn't a huge transition for me. So my routine has kind of been the same for a while, but I think for like students, mainly like the students, my residents that I've talked to, is stick to the routine that you've had in the dorms. If you wake up at a certain time, make sure you wake up at that time. If you have breakfast at this time, go and have breakfast at that time. When you have class, for me, I like natural lighting. So I make sure that I am standing like near a window, so it gives me like a sense of that I'm kind of outside and getting fresh air, even though I'm still at my desk. So I like to tell them, just make sure that you're following the routine that you've had and don't get so caught up in just staying in your bed, because I know it can be very, very tempting to just lay there. Like actually get up and do something, because it's going to make you more productive. And I think what Elon touched on too is just like sitting down and writing your schedule. I think if you do that like every night, it's going to really help you like actually power through the next day and be intentional in making sure that you follow through with what you're going to do.
Now I want to open it up, and even for you all, if you had questions for each other, if anyone has any questions, then we can move on to some more specific individual organization questions that I want to touch on. But I want to leave some space right now for anyone that has any personal questions for the work that we're doing, or for just tips and tricks, again, like we just kind of touched on.
I think I like using like just a little reminder app on my phone and just making a list and then like setting reminders for when I have things to do by a certain day, whether they be for like personal goals or homework goals, stuff like that. And it's kind of nice to check them off once you're done and like see that list kind of get smaller as you are more productive. That's worked for me. Yeah.
I also suggest just like getting outside when you can, not like, going too far away from your house, but getting some fresh air is super important. Being locked up in the house. We're supposed to be in the house, but don't spend all of your day inside. I'm one of the students who had to leave campus and move back home. So everything starts later in the day for me. So things start around 12 for me, while things start around 8 or 9 a.m. for other people. So it's really important for me that when I wake up, I do some things for myself and then also get outside, because for the rest of the day, I'll be inside either doing homework, on calls, or in class. So getting outside in the morning is really helpful for me, and maybe that can help other students too.
I'm really curious to see what, because we do have Jen and Lance here from student engagement, like also what student engagement might be doing for students, and like programming and stuff like that.
Jen, would you like to comment or would you like me to take it away?
You can go first, Lance.
Well, student engagement has done a lot in terms of different programming. A lot of what we do and a lot of what we have planned are in our Instagram. So before we've had Netflix parties, we've had online resources available. So we've just been making sure that students have an accessible way to do our programming through our different Instagram posts. We've also done in a lot of the history months, we've done quizzes and trivia over in the stories portion. So it's a lot to do with our organization as long as you keep up to date with our social media.
And then I would additionally add, so we've been trying to do different events or engagements for students each week to kind of mix it up and also to create different spaces for different students to get involved and engaged. So again, you can follow our social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. So you're welcome to follow us wherever. So I know Netflix parties and some of those things have been pretty popular for students. And also in collaboration with PAB, we've been doing, sorry, my chimes, I know are going in the background, I'm sure. But PAB has been doing a lot of events as well. So they're planning the biggest Zoom call, for example. So there's some fun things that are up and coming in the next couple weeks.
Awesome. And if anyone has any other questions too, feel free to use the chat. I'll be monitoring that as well. So I appreciate that question, Michelle. And again, you student leaders as well, if you have anything for each other, this is also a time and space for all of us to collaborate and learn how some of the best practices other organizations are doing. At this point, I wanted to kind of move on to some individual questions that I had. So the first one is for one team specifically. So for students that are still in the dorm, what is their situation looking like? What are some of the offerings that one team is working on for students that are still in the dorm specifically?
So for dining wise, the building is still open, it's still functioning. Students can still go and they can still use their meal swipes. They can still use M&G at the C-store. The hours are a bit different in that we close later on in the day, but students can still go down there and utilize that. For one team in particular, what we're doing individually has CAs is we're still reaching out to our students. So when this first started, we reached out to all our students and contacted them and let them know like what the situation is if they're not like reading their emails, that we're informing them. And just asking them also like what are their plans and letting them know that we are still in the building. There are some CAs that are gone, but there are quite a significant amount of CAs that are actually still in the building, and we are still here if they have any questions for us. A lot of it is also we've created group me's. So we had group me's for all our floors, but then we created separate group me's for the students that are still in the building and asking them like, how can we engage with you? Like, what do you need from us since we can't do social gatherings? So I know for Edson in particular, that's in college, what we have started doing is that we're doing kind of passive programming with the students. So every week we're going to have like a poll for students and just like ask them like choose your fighter type questions, like between like Netflix, Hulu, like what's your favorite type of thing. And then we also do post like some funny videos where they can just not think about like COVID-19. It's just like little funny videos. So I know for one of the videos that we posted, it's about Tiger King and just like a little conspiracy theory surrounding that. So we've been doing that and trying to get students engaged. It is a bit difficult since we don't get to talk to them, and that is majority of like our job is talking to students. But for the students that are here, they're engaging with us, they're participating in the polls, and if they have questions, they are asking us.
I do have a question because I was a former dorm student. Are the common spaces still open? I know the dining hall got shut down downstairs for takeout only, but the common spaces on the individual floors, are those open, closed?
So the study rooms are locked. Students aren't able to use that. And then for the lounges, all the chairs have been put up. So students are encouraged not to sit there, just to keep like the social distancing aspect still there.
Great. And then I had another question. This is specifically for students that were former dorm students or Roosevelt Point students, and they're transitioning back home. what are some advice that you would give them for adjusting back into that environment where they're living back with friends or family from living independently for so long? What are some tips that you would give for that transition? Because I know it can be challenging when you have your own schedule from living in the dorms and then you have to go back and you have to live with other people that might not be used to your schedule. Or like you mentioned, you're going back home and you're going to have this time zone and this time difference that you're not used to. So what would be some advice you would give to those students that are dealing with that transition?
So I think like the number one thing I've been telling my residents in particular is have some patience. It's very difficult. I think even like to me, they come and ask me questions and I'm like, I don't know. And I'm pretty sure like there's a lot of people that we don't know. There's a lot of uncertainties. So the first thing is just have patience. But if they are home, I think the most important thing is just sit down and learn to adjust, like figure out what's going to work best for you. Because since they don't have study rooms, for me personally, this even living in the dorms, I know like I used to go out and study in Cronkite or the law building, and now it's like I don't have that. So just take some time to sit down and figure out what's best going to work for you. For students, I have told them like start learning what your learning style is, because that's going to help you a lot to figure out what's best going to work for you, whether it's using YouTube, whether it's just sitting down and like walking around to study. And then I have had some students who are in the East Coast, so time zone is very different when some of their classes are at like 8 a.m., but where they live, it's 5 or earlier. So I've said communicate with your professors. Professors are known to like, they need to be open and understanding of what's going on. So also just like be in contact with faculty and let them know like what your situation is and seeing like what they can do to help you out. Because personally, I can't do anything, so you really have to like reach out and let them know. I've told them this is like honestly like an adult moment for you. You're at home, but you're still independent in that you have other things to like worry. You have to prioritize your education. So this is really a great time for you to branch out and start utilizing like those communication skills that you've been taught here.
I think those are some really great tips. And I forgot to ask one about those that are still living in the dorm. Do you have recommendations for, I don't know, making the most out of their day in a small space? Because yes, living in a dorm versus going back home, like your housing is usually different and you're more confined in the dorm room. So what are some personal tips that you're giving to students, whether that's like working out or like doing yoga? I don't know what that looks like for each individual person, but I was hoping you could touch on that as well.
So I've actually been pushing out resources that the other organizations actually that you guys have. So I know I pushed out like the PAB watch parties, and I know counseling is still doing something around. They're doing like a spiritual guidance thing as well. So I've also pushed that out to them because I believe right now there's like free counseling. So I've really been trying to give them that resource because I know this can be a very stressful time. And I know something that I've done is I'll just open my door and I'll talk to them. I'll be in my own personal room and they'll be in their own personal room, but it's just like talking to them there kind of helps you as well. But mostly I've been just giving them the resources that you guys have put out and that encouraging them to like still participate in that so that they still get that university feeling of being on campus.
Yeah, those are some really great tips while still keeping social distancing in mind. I wanted to move on to the wellness team, so focusing on what the Sun Devil Fitness Center is doing. So you mentioned a little bit earlier that you're pushing out on 3 different platforms. So could you talk a little bit about what students can expect on each platform? So like what is different between the Instagram live videos versus the YouTube and things like that?
Yeah. So we're working on 3 different platforms. I can go through all 3. One of the most popular ones is definitely our Instagram Lives. Our Instagram Lives are opportunities for students to come onto their Instagram and see what's happening in action. So while the instructor won't be able to see the people that are attending, who those are attending can comment and participate. And then those lives can be saved for 24 hours so people can tap back into the live and see what that instructor had done that day. So that's kind of how Instagram Live works. And most of those Instagram Lives are happening on the personal Instagrams of the instructors. So you might not see them on the Live Well Instagram, but you'll see them on their personal Instagrams. And for Zoom, we have some Zoom opportunities. Those are happening daily as well. Those classes, again, range from Pilates to Booty Works to kickboxing. And those classes are happening where in a setting like this, we can see who's instructing and they can see you, which is a great opportunity to have that in-class feeling. You're still giving that opportunity to get instruction and maybe feedback on the exercises being taught, or even you're able to ask questions in action. So those are great opportunities there for our fitness classes. And then we have our YouTube as well. Our YouTube is recorded opportunities to get engaged and moving around. So those are looking like the same type of classes, but we also have opportunities for like wind downs. We have some yoga teachers just teaching their sequences as well. So just like practices for you to just be still and breathe at this time. And those are just varied by just the different opportunities instructors have to offer. So those are some of our like fitness and wellness opportunities. We still have those wellness coaches opportunities as well, if people are just wanting to learn about the different ways to organize their lives, or to just deal with the virtual experience right now. And then again, the nutrition educators are also available to for people who have questions at this time.
I know you're an instructor as well. So if a student is interested in taking a class, what advice would you give them on like making room in their space to be able to take a class? Or like, what would your recommendation be for like an exercise routine, just to kind of get your blood pumping every day?
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. I know for myself, even as an instructor, I was like, I don't know where I'm going to create space. Moving back home wasn't the most ideal thing for me, but I had to move back home. So that's what I did. And I would just suggest you don't need that much space, and you don't need to have like a studio in your house, as I know some people do, but you don't have to have that in your house. You just really need, a space where you can have your arms out and you can kick your foot up and not hit anything. And honestly, I would suggest to be confident in yourself. I mean, it's a different workout, it's a different experience, but just take everything you can from it. It might seem more difficult to receive instruction over a screen because you can't maybe see the instructor completely, or you might not be able to hear everything they're saying if it's live, but just be patient with yourself and be patient with the instructor. Continue to ask questions. I know I haven't had the opportunity to teach for the SCFWC, but I've had the opportunity to teach for other classes, and I'm just constantly asking my attendees questions like, can you hear me? Did you get that count? Do you want to go over this again? We want it to be as much of the same experiences as we can provide, but we know there are some struggles with technology and things like that, but we just encourage everybody to be patient as possible.
And the last thing is some healthy eating, mindfulness, things like that.
Yeah.
I know it's super easy nowadays to just go grab that bag of chips. I know I'm snacking all day because I'm home. So what some tips would you have for students that are kind of in that same boat as they see their pantry all day? Like, how do you?
Yes. Kind of similar to what Uma was saying in the beginning of this conversation, to try to stick to what you were regularly doing. If those were healthy habits. If they were not healthy habits, then maybe not. Don't stick to them. But I would suggest just creating some normalcy for yourself. So getting up and making breakfast and eating breakfast. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to sleep in now because I don't have to commute to class or have to go to class. But it's still really important to get up, give yourself a breakfast, and still snack. It's good to snack, but maybe don't snack consistently, and still make meals as well. Like it's important to have variety, but also to feed yourself and making sure that you have food, because that's going to give you energy. That's going to give you the energy to be productive during your day. And just giving yourself, the extra boost to get through that Zoom call or get through that class that you have that day. You can still have a variety of snacks. We never turn away any type of snack. If it's chocolate and it makes you feel good, eat it, of course. But just trying to have a variety and try to create those healthy habits that you would have been doing already.
Awesome. And please, again, feel free to use the chat if you have an individual question that we didn't touch on. And I'll be sure to say that out loud. I want to move on to Changemaker and have them talk a little bit about these 15 days of virtually being engaged. And I also wanted to ask about how individual students can volunteer and engage with their community from home. Is there specific websites or resources that you would recommend for students that are still looking to either be a part of something? Because again, I think we all want to step up at this time and make a difference in our community. And for some people that's challenging because you're limited to that virtual setting. Or for students that have to fulfill volunteer requirements for certain programs, things like that. So if Changemaker, you could take it away, that'd be great.
Yeah, so for our 15 days, so some things include, so for yesterday, it was, like I said, the Amazon, donating some of your funds to charity. We have other things like links to where you can find to donate blood because, you know, even though things are kind of shutting down at the moment, people are still in need of blood. And so even though, you know, people still need help with that. So we have that link set there. Then we also have Meals on Wheels because there are people that still aren't able to get meals. And right now everyone's kind of stockpiling. Not everyone has the privilege to do that. We also have a few other things that, you know, you go online and you're able to either donate or, you know, contribute to some other thing like that where it's going to be virtual, but, you know, someone's going to be able to physically make something out of that, whether it be like a company that's working on its own to do all of this. Some other things also, just stay connected with your community is, you know, when you're at a store, everyone kind of right now I feel like is very hostile, but that doesn't mean you still can't be nice to them. If you see someone struggling, you know, still free to help out. I know that it can be just a little nervous to kind of go near anyone, but some people really appreciate the help. Also, reaching out to your grandparents or anyone you feel like could be at risk, just sending them a text message saying, hey, like, do you need anything to be picked up at the store? Like, I can go run some errands for you. Especially since, you know, we are young and healthy. I feel like we should really take advantage of that. And yeah, it's really just about being kind to one another at the moment. And I feel like that's the best way to kind of stay connected to everyone and just carry on the sort of service perspective and try to give back to the community. But the best way would be online. And I feel like right now a lot of things are popping up that you can do online. A lot of companies like stores and stuff, they're also having like GoFundMes and other ways that you can donate. I know Lucky Man Concerts right now, they're actually doing a GoFundMe to help support their employees, where if you donate $1, you'll get $2 for credit. And so, you know, if you have a $25 concert ticket that you want to go to, you donate 12.5, and now you have that $25 ticket that you can cover now. And so yeah, it's just other things like that where you can donate your time, writing letters. I think we have a few links on where you could write letters to like kids in hospitals right now. And it's all on our Instagram, and I believe it's on our Facebook as well. But yeah, those are some things that we have up right now.
I think you really mentioned something important is being kind and just being supportive to your community. And that community doesn't have to be this widespread, big food donation event that you throw. It could be as little as just reaching out to your grandparents. And that makes such a significant difference. So I'm really glad that you touched on that. And I was hoping that you could add if you have any virtual events coming up that students can look out for besides the 15 days of giving. Is there anything to close out the year?
Yeah, so we have, let's see. Yesterday we actually had a Netflix viewing party for Self-Made, and earlier this week we had a voter registration session. But coming up, we have a civic dialogue on the 14th. I believe we should have that link should come out onto our Instagram. And we have like polls and other things on our Instagram to, you know, be kind of interactive. We are also having another self-made watch party next Thursday on the 16th. And then for the 20th through the 24th, we are celebrating Earth Week. And I believe that we will be doing a raffle. And I believe that the reward would either be, let's see, I think it's either going to be an Amazon Prime subscription, some free movies or TV shows on Vudu, an Audible subscription, or if we're able to, mail out some of our Changemaker shirts and whatnot. But that's what we have going on for April.
Awesome. It sounds like some really neat things. I want to move on and pretty much wrap it up with some final questions for the Sun Devil Movement for Violence Prevention and student engagement. Again, feel free to use the chat if you have a personal question or even just interrupt. I wanted to ask Sun Devil Movement for Violence Prevention. There's been a lot of reports now, if you keep up with the news, and I'm sure everyone is because of the nature of the situation, with domestic violence on the rise because everyone is self-isolating. I was hoping that you could share some resources, hotlines, or support groups, whether that's something that your organization puts on or those that you would recommend. And then I was hoping you could touch on your own meetings and what students could expect if they were to become more involved.
So for Sun Devil MVP, I also just dropped in the chat like a link to our full event calendar on our ASU website for upcoming events for Sexual Assault Awareness Month throughout the month of April. And then below that, I also dropped the link for the domestic violence hotline, which people can use to anonymously report things that are happening in their lives. And then also to keep in mind too, so sometimes survivors of domestic violence or sexual violence may not have the option to like safely report something that's happening to them. So like also just checking in with people that are vulnerable and like who you may think might be at risk for like increased domestic violence situations during this time. Like you can also have the option to report on behalf of them anonymously if they're not able to. And then there's also the My Plan app, which is available to download for free on the App Store, which is like a way for victims of domestic violence to safely come up with a plan with a quick escape route for so if they know that their like abuser is at home with them, they're able to like leave the app pretty easily without like being conspicuous. And I also just downloaded that link. I included that link in the chat for if people are interested in downloading that or even just to check it out. And for especially groups for DACA recipients that may be experiencing like a lost job and that kind of thing, like they might be especially vulnerable during this time. On April 16th next week, we're having a conversation through Zoom for the Sun Devil Movement for Violence Prevention. And we're going to be talking about some additional barriers this group might be experiencing. And we're going to like analyze like what resources could be available for them at this time and also like ways to support victims and survivors. And I'll make sure to also include the link as well. So that's going to be from 5 to 7 p.m. on April 16th, which is next Thursday. And so that's the link to attend the Zoom meeting to anyone interested. It's an open invitation. Feel free to bring anyone you want. And yeah, so we're just trying to like be there as a support group. And then also our Sun Devil Support Network advisors are always available. And there's like a full list on our ASU webpage about like students that have gone through training to act as just a way to help, just as like someone to talk to who has been trained on like the resources available at ASU and then in the surrounding Phoenix area, just as so if someone is not sure of like how to proceed in a situation, there's a whole list of people by campus who are safe contacts. So I just included that website also. I know that I dropped a big list, but yeah, just these are all like free resources for students to use during this time, and feel free to use any of them.
And those safe contacts, they're all still working in this virtual world, correct? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, and then so also like the peer educators for the sexual and relationship violence prevention program are all available to talk to right now, and people can also like reach out to the domestic violence hotline. We definitely encourage that if they're in a safe situation to do, if they're in a safe environment to do so. And also like contacting 911 if it gets to an emergent situation. And using the My Plan app is also a great way to do so. And reaching out to myself or like any of the other peer educators for the department is also a great way to keep in contact. And if they have any questions.
And you have these weekly meetings as well. So could you just touch on what goes on during these weekly meetings for people that aren't aware?
So we have a different kind of topic every week, in addition to like just letting people know about the programming that we're doing, especially during this month for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Like, for example, last night we talked just about what we can provide for victims of domestic violence and during this time, and like how the numbers are increasing. And each week we're also holding snack chats through our Instagram story at Sun Devil MVP, where we're going to have like a kind of like an interactive way to we're gonna have a peer educator prepare us like an easy snack at home while also discussing like a different topic every week. So those videos are going to be released every Wednesday, and then the following day is our meetings. So then we'll discuss the topic that was discussed the day prior. So yeah, we're changing the topic every week. But if students choose to like come tune into these meetings, they can expect like a wide variety of topics surrounding ways to prevent domestic violence during this time, and then relevant topics surrounding the issue as well.
Thank you. And those all sound like some amazing events, and you guys are working so hard, especially this month. And I'm sure it's hard with this month being such a big part of your community and doing it online. So I commend you for everything that you're doing there. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, if anyone has any questions, just feel free to reach out. And we're hoping to see people attend virtually.
I do want to end again, unless anyone has any questions with student engagement. I was hoping you could touch on how you're supporting clubs during this time. Any tips that you have from like an administrative role, because I know we look up to you, Jen, and your team and all the support that you've given students during this time. So I was hoping that we could end with you.
Sure. So in terms of clubs, there's a lot of different things going on. So for example, if you all are looking for a function to host elections, you're able to do so through Sun Devil Sync and through your club's portal on there, which I think is a great opportunity for those who still haven't picked leadership for next year and still need to be able to do that during the spring semester. So that's a great option for a lot of students. Additionally, in Sun Devil Sync, we've been posting a lot of different events, and clubs are still posting their virtual events in there. So definitely feel free to check them out. And then lastly, in terms of clubs, we actually are starting the re-registration process today for next year. So definitely make sure to take a look and update your club in Sun Devil Sync, just so we can get everyone all ready to go for fall, when hopefully we are all back up to being in person and helping to connect clubs to one another. But yeah, no, in terms of student engagement, we really appreciate all of you and all the hard work you're doing, because ultimately it's about the student experience and creating spaces that you all feel are welcoming, but also create new ideas and new experiences for each of you. So thank you so much for stepping up and being wonderful student leaders.
Thank you so much to all the student leaders that came on this call and really just spoke about their personal experiences and what their organizations are doing. For everyone that is going to be watching this later on, you can see that everyone is still working really hard to make the student experience important virtually. So I commend everyone, as well as USG. We're undergraduate student government, and we are still putting on programming, advocating for students from the virtual world. So you can attend all of our meetings that are open to the public via Zoom, and that's on our public drive on our website, USG Downtown. And with that, I'm just going to stop the recording.